Hello, M&S Studios here. Today we're actually going to be talking about top 10 Clone Wars sets that need to be remade. Now in terms of Clone Wars sets, this is going to be like basic Clone Wars things that happened episode 2 through episode 3, and then everything else in between. So these are just going to be mainly vehicles. In fact, I think all of these are vehicles of some sort. But these are just all vehicles that in general we just need a remake. We just need to see these things again, and it would be really nice to see them again. So the first one is the V-Wing Starfighter. Now the V-Wing is actually one of the coolest starfighters in my opinion. I love the sleek design. I love just everything about it, and it's actually the ship that the Empire uses until, of course, the TIE Fighter makes its mark on the galaxy. And it's also, I'm pretty sure the TIE Fighter was also cheaper as well, or roughly around the same price. So that's a nice thing. But the V-Wing just a really awesome starfighter in my opinion. One that I think we should see a remake of. Now, the last one I believe only had an astromech and a clone pilot. And I think that was back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I wouldn't be surprised to see about the same thing. That would not be a surprise to me at all. Just seeing a clone pilot and an astromech, I think that would be perfect. In fact, that's what we've been seeing lately with with smaller starfighters, is a figure, like an actual figure, and then an astromech. It'd probably be around a $20-$30 set. I believe it was around $20 or so when it first came out. So or when that last one came out, it was around that price range. So now one thing I also really hope that they would do with this one is they'd actually make it bigger, because the Lego ones are actually really, really thin. And it is a small ship, but it's definitely not as small as Lego makes it. It's definitely a lot bigger, a lot more complicated than you actually think. And there's actually some pretty cool mocks out there. Brick Vault has a really cool mock that I actually really like and would love to have my own version, because the V-Wing is personally one of my favorite starfighters in all of Star Wars. So, but yeah, V-Wing definitely is one that I think we should see, and that's at number 10. Number 9,
We have the V-19 Torrent. And this is actually one of the cooler ships, in my opinion, from the Clone Wars. It's a really cool ship. I think it's probably one of the better ones that actually was made in one of the first waves of the Clone Wars. And it just looks super cool. I mean, just this older style set just looked amazing back in that day when it was made. And I think it's probably one of the more successful Lego Star Wars sets. Because it just looked so cool and it was very unique. So you could also consider this kind of like a T-Wing, but I don't know how many people would call it that. But the V-19 Torrent, either way, one of the cooler sets that I think should be remade sometime. We actually did get this one rumored back in like 2018, 2017-ish. And it was rumored for like a while, for like a year or two. And I'm surprised that we never saw it. But at the same time, I wasn't too terribly surprised. So, now one thing that I think could be better on this set is they could actually use some more of the sloped pieces for the front. And I think that would make this set look really, really good and much better than the original version. So, although the original version does look great and there are some pretty nice fine lines, I do think that there are some things that could definitely be worked on. And I think the wings it would be pretty cool if they did make the wings just a tiny bit thicker. I think the wings on this one are pretty thin. But other than that, I think this is a really cool set that does need to see a remake eventually. So, now moving on to number 8, we have the Z95 Headhunter. And yes, absolutely, this is probably one of the cooler Clone Wars style sets in my opinion, just because of the fact that it came with some great figures. I love the design of the ship. It just was an awesome set in my opinion. That again, we really do need to see this one remade. The last one we saw was back in like 2014, 2013-ish, I think. And seeing this set would be just fantastic. So the figures that it did come with were it came with a 501st figure, so that was one plus with the set, is it did come with one of the only 501st figures at that time. So that was a plus side. And then it also came with a Phase 2 clone pilot with the new Phase 2 helmet, and I don't think that's been seen in any other set as of now. And one thing that I think, one set that I think it could be in that would actually make a lot of sense is actually the new um, the new Republic gunship, or LAAT. I think that would be a really cool set to see the Phase 2 and the Phase 1 clone pilot variants in that set. I think that'd be awesome. I don't know if they'll do that, but it would be pretty cool. And then it also came with the Pong Krell minifig, the only one. And the Pong Krell minifig just looked super cool. It had the custom piece for the head and whatnot, and it just looked so awesome, in my opinion. Also, one of the only figures to come with 2 double-bladed lightsabers. I think he's the only one, actually, nowadays, out of any of the LEGO Star Wars sets. So that's pretty crazy, in my opinion. And, yeah, now, if they were to make this set, some things that I think with that design would be pretty key is making the wings thicker. I think that's the problem with a lot of the older Clone Wars style sets, and not honestly any Star Wars set that's a spaceship really struggles with the wing width. They should be, a lot of them should be a lot wider. Some of them should be thinner. Most of them just need to be a little bit bigger. But again, it is Lego. They try to make things play where you can play with them rather than them being collectible. So I can understand it there, but now, and if they were to make this set in the next year or so, one thing that I think they should stay true to is the minifigs. The minifigs were great. All they would have to do is update the printing a little bit on them, and they would look fantastic. And I think if they did that one simple thing, this set, if they were to make it now, would be great. Now, in terms of price point, which I didn't talk about on the V19 Torrent, I think that one would probably be around $60, but with the Z95, honestly, if I had to be if I had to be totally honest, I honestly think this one would be probably around that $60-$70 range, just nowadays speaking. So, and again, with the minifigures, probably going to be updated and then exclusive for that set again. So, but yeah, that's number 8. Move on to number 7. We have the AT-OT with Republic Dropship, and this is definitely one that we need to see again. I mean, everybody's been pushing to see this one for at least the last year or so, and I think seeing this one again would be just absolutely fantastic. And I mean, one thing that I think can make this set better actually would be adding a little more clone troopers, and also is fixing up the builds of the build of the cockpit area for the AT-OT, and I think those would be 2 vital things. I think the Republic dropship, as a whole, just by itself, actually looks pretty good for its time, and I think there's just some minor things that would have to update, that the LEGO designers would have to update with that one. I think it would be pretty easy to do that one in terms of just how it would look, because it already looked pretty dang solid, in my opinion. I thought it looked great, and all they would have to do to fix those things that are like those mini things that are just really don't even have to be fixed would be very easy to do. So at least nowadays anyway. Now, in terms of figures, I actually wouldn't mind if we actually saw some of the 327th figures, because we actually do see an AT-OT on Felucia in episode 3 where Ayla Secura is dead, or gets killed anyway. And I think seeing some 327th in this set would be really awesome and really, really cool, in my opinion. So that's something that I think I would do. And then some other characters that they could throw in there is they could throw in Commander Bly, which he has pretty similar armor to the rest of the 322nd or 327th. So I think that'd be pretty easy to do. And then the last figures that would probably end up being in there, they're probably throwing a couple regular white clone troopers, and then also throwing in a clone pilot or 2, maybe. I think it only needs 1, actually. So, but yeah, that's number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have the AT-TE. And yes, this is absolutely one that we need to see a remake of. I mean, AT-TE is probably one of the most iconic walkers in all of Star Wars besides the AT-AT, because of the fact that this was the first one that we see in the first or second clone vehicle that we really see in Attack of the Clones, and it also plays a very prominent role not only in the Clone Wars but also in Rebels, because we do see Rex bear an AT-TE. Now that set actually came out about 4 or maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think. So I think seeing that set again would be pretty nice, especially now, because it'd be about 5-6 years since we saw the last one. And also something that I didn't like with the last one is the fact that it had like a discolored leg, had all this crap on the edge of it, and it didn't look bad by any means because it did look pretty accurate, considerable. Like looking at the art for it and comparing it from the show to the set, it looked pretty accurate. But I just didn't like the way it looked. I think the one thing that they could fix with that is just making this a regular ATTE, nothing added. Just a regular Walker that we see in episode 2, the Clone Wars, and of course, just anywhere else that it is. I can't remember if it's in episode 3. I don't think it is, but yeah, this is definitely one we need to see, in my opinion. And actually, one thing they could do if they really wanted to, but I think it would up the price though, is they could put the ATTE in the ATOT. They could swap those with the Republic dropship. Now, in terms of the price for the ATOT with dropship, I think that would probably be around $180. So I think putting in a couple other pieces, like a couple more pieces, would probably be around the same price. But the ATTE by itself, though, would definitely, I think it'd round out to about $110, depending on what they put in that in the set in terms of like figures and whatnot. So now in terms of figures, I think that it makes sense to actually throw in some Ahsoka clone troopers. I think that would be pretty cool to throw in a couple more of those. Maybe even Captain Vaughn. I think that would be pretty cool because Captain Vaughn's one of my personal favorite characters from the Clone Wars. So at least season 7, because he just looks so cool. I loved his armor because he looked like very reminiscent of Cody, but then with some obviously the modified art. So. And then also throwing in some the Mandalorians that they fight would also be pretty cool. I don't think they should throw in Ahsoka like as a minifigure. They could throw in Maul, but mainly I'd be looking for like Bo-Katan, a 332nd, of course, Gar Saxon, and those are the 3 main figures that I would need to see in this set, and maybe a white Phase 2 or something. But moving on to the next one, at number 5, we have the Corporate Alliance Tank Droid, and by far one of the most awesome sets, and also one of the most accurate sets that LEGO's ever made. I actually really love the Corporate Alliance Tank Droid. The most recent one that we got was just fantastic in my opinion, and by far one of the coolest LEGO Star Wars sets that we've seen. I really think we need to see the another one of these. I can't remember exactly when the last one came out, but I do know we do need to see another one of these. Now, in terms of like figures that it should have, in my opinion, it should have a couple, at least 1 or 2 Phase 1 troopers, some battle droids, obviously, and maybe even throwing a crab droid wouldn't be a bad idea either. But this one I think would be pretty easy. And actually, if they did throw in like a couple Phase 1 aerial troopers, I think that would be really cool because we actually do get new aerial trooper designs in the Battlefront game. With like the gray and stuff on them, I think that would look pretty awesome like in a figure form in this set. So, but yeah, I think this is definitely one we need to see in the next year or so, and would not be surprising in my opinion. Now, in terms of price, I'd say $20 to $30. I don't think this one would exceed $30, depending on what the figures, of course, are. And yeah, so moving on to the next one, we have the ARC 170 at number 4, and yes, I mean, ARC 170 is probably the most iconic Clone Wars / Episode 3 ship. Like, we see this one literally like right in the very beginning of the 3rd movie, and it just looks super cool. I mean, I remember seeing Episode 3 for the first time, and I was like, whoa, I want that ship, and like, I want that ship because it looks so cool. Like I like wanted it in real life because it was just a really awesome ship. I actually really would love to see like a built up version of this, like made out of pure metal, and like I would love to sit in like one of these cockpits. It just looks so cool. Now in terms of figures, the last one actually had a couple of the clone pilot troopers that had some really cool printing for the helmets back in 2010, and they looked really cool. I think it would be pretty cool if they did make this the dual molded thing where it did have the visor and then putting the clone head there. I think that would be okay, but I also wouldn't mind having the visor printed. I wouldn't mind that either. So, and then no, the last one also did come with, I believe it came with a Kit Fisto. So I wouldn't mind if it did, but I think it'd be pretty cool if it just stayed with, like, stuck with the clones. Um, and then it obviously would probably include an astromech, and that'd be about it. I don't think this would include a battle droid or anything. I think it'd just be stick to the clone, maybe a Jedi thrown in here, and then of course the astromech, much like the last one we got. Now, one thing I actually didn't like about the older set was the fact that the wings are very, very thin, which is a widespread problem throughout a lot of the older Clone Wars and really any of the Star Wars ships. Is the wings are very, very thin for most models, and that wasn't really a surprise. Like when that set came out, the wings were very thin, but I think that's one thing that could be fixed with them. Another thing that I didn't like about this one was the fact that there's like huge gaping holes in the wings. That you open the wings up, it just looks terrible in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Otherwise, I don't know if they could like reconstruct that in any way, but it would be pretty cool if they could downsize the little gap that's in between the wings, or like where the wings connect and whatnot. So, but yeah, definitely one I think we need to see. And now, in terms of price for that one, honestly, I'd say about $80 to $100. I would not be surprised if this one exceeded $80. So, moving on to the next one, we have the Y-Wing Bomber. And this is one that I actually really liked. I thought this was a really cool one that we saw during the Clone Wars era of sets back in, I think, 2009 or 2010. I can't remember exactly when this one came out, but it still was a really cool set. Came with some decent figures. It had Anakin and Ahsoka and, of course, R2. And it just worked out. This was just that good of a set, I feel like. There was, like, really nothing wrong with this set. I mean, there's a little bit of lack of smoothness. Just there's a lot of studded area. But I think they could fix that very easily nowadays with, like, all the curved pieces they have. So I really don't see that as a problem at all. Now, we actually did see a variant of the Y-Wing Bomber, the Clone Wars Y-Wing, of course, in the last episode of Season 7 of the Clone Wars. And we actually do see I'm assuming is Rex's version. And that one actually looks really cool. I love the white and the blue. That just looks so cool and so clean. And the figures that I would probably end up putting in this are the one, like, here's a picture here. The figures, I would actually keep the figures the same except for the Ahsoka Trooper. I think that would be the only one that I would actually change, just because of the fact that I think the Ahsoka Trooper just really is an unnecessary figure for this set. I would actually just throw in an astromech, and with how things usually run with the Y-Wing bombers, I feel like that's pretty appropriate. And then in terms of price nowadays, I'd probably say around 70, pushing it maybe $80. So I don't know exactly how much this one would be, but I'd say around $70 to $80. So moving on to the next one, we have the T6 Shuttle. And this is actually a really cool one that I thought had a pretty decent spotlight in the Clone Wars series. Although I'm pretty sure it does get, like, destroyed, like, 2 or 3 times, like their original version. I'm pretty sure it gets, like, wrecked. So, but yeah, nevertheless, still a really cool shuttle, in my opinion, one of the more unique ones. I love the structure, the elements that they used on the last one. The design of it was just really fresh and really clean, in my opinion. Other than the fact that the wings are a little too thin, I think what they were like, if they were to make this one nowadays, I think that they would just bulk up the wings, bulk up the whole frame of it. Then the last one, I think, would be, and then I think it would be perfect for the most part. And I would really love to see these sets. I would love to see this set redone in a new fashion. Figures, I would probably throw in like a season 1 and through 2 versions of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, and then maybe throw like a random astromech or something like that. But even that would be, I feel like 3 figures would probably work for this one. And then in terms of price, I wouldn't say above 50 or less. So I think, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how much the last one was, but definitely I wouldn't say above $50. Now, moving on to the last one, this one I was really looking forward to talk to you guys about, and this is the Venator, number 1. Of course, the Venator is by far one of the most desired Lego Star Wars sets, I feel like, nowadays, just because the Venator we haven't seen it for a long time, or like any version of it. We see it very, very, like it's like the main ship in the Clone Wars for the most part. We also see it in the most recent Star Wars game, Jedi Fallen Order. So I think this is definitely one that we need to see again. And like in a UCS scale, I think that would be great. I think $500 to $600 would probably be the price range on this one, but nevertheless, it still come with like a lot of figures. I feel like this one would come with way more than the Devastator class Star Destroyer that we got last year, and I think it would work overall. I think $500 to $600 would not be a bad price if they were to make this one in a UCS scale. It would probably be a little smaller than the Devastator because it actually is, I believe. So I think it's a little more pointed. I think it might be a little longer, but it's definitely smaller for the most part. I can't remember exactly, but definitely the Venator is by far one of my most wanted Clone Wars sets just because I feel like we need to see it. And even seeing this one at a play scale, like at $180, I would still like to see that one. And yeah, so some of the figures that I would actually update in this one, I would like to see some of the those Republic troopers or whatever, the Republic Guard trooper things. I would like to see those guys remade and like maybe updated a little bit. And even then, they probably wouldn't even have to do that because the last ones are pretty accurate, in my opinion. But definitely like an updated Chancellor Palpatine with a less detailed face would work too. I think that would be definitely one that we need to see. And then there's also the clone troopers, and of course we need to see clone troopers in a Venator set. So I think that one's obvious. So, but yeah, now I think those are it. I think that's it. So now I do have a couple of honorable mentions. So I do have the Vulture Droid and the Hyena class bomber. Both sets are pretty cool sets that I think we need to see. I think it'd be pretty cool if we got like a 2-in-1 pack for them, but I don't know how they would do that. And then there's also the Geonosian Starfighter, which I feel like is one of the less popular Clone Wars style sets, and I feel like it would be pretty cool to see this one again. Maybe even with Dooku or even Savage Opress in this one again. I'd like to see Savage. He's a really cool character. And then there's, of course, the Republic Attack Shuttle. Obviously, I feel like this one's definitely one we need to see. I will be really surprised if we don't see this one again in the future. So, but yeah, that'll pretty much do it for my top 10 list. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope that you guys can like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more just like this one. I plan on doing a ton of other sets, a ton of other videos, and I really hope that you guys stay tuned. I do have a couple other videos I plan on doing maybe today or tomorrow. I do plan on doing a Mandalorian trailer talk. I want to talk through that because I feel like that's going to be a really awesome thing to finally see, which I really hope comes out today. It was supposed to come out 2 days ago, but that obviously didn't happen. But yeah, I have a ton of more content coming your way. Just stay tuned, like, subscribe, and that really helps the channel grow. So thanks for watching. I'll have to see you guys in the next one.